This
Okay,
one.
recording is
And
going now.
slideshow from the beginning. Okay.
Okay, that's running, and I'll go to the chat box to all and attendees, please.
Okay.
Okay, that's running. And I'll go to the chat box. See. All questions. All right, I've got them to type it in the questions into the Q&A box.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'll shut off no one. That'll do it. Okay. All right, here we go. We're going to invite them in.
Okay.
All right, I've got them to type it in the questions in the Q&A box.
Okay, thank you.
Shut off. For some reason that's running in the background. See if I can get rid of that. All right, here we go. We're going to invite them in.
Okay.
Okay, you're on, Ward. There's 192 people in.
Okay, great. Thanks. Welcome to the closing sessions of Hamcation. I'm Ward Silver in 0AX, and my talk is called Small Station Bang for the Buck. And this was originally presented at Contest University down here. And that was sponsored by CTU, Contest University, and ICOM America. If you've never gotten a chance to attend the Contest University sessions in association with the Dayton Hamvention, give it a try. It's an all-day session, lots more than just contesting, a lot of station design and other good stuff. So this talk is going to be covering several aspects of bang for the buck. It's not all just stuff that you buy. It's stuff that you do, stuff that you learn, stuff that you learn to strategize and plan. So we're going to go over priorities for small stations. And while this is in the context of contesting, a lot of this will also apply for emergency communications and DXing and all sorts of things. And then we're going to talk about building on success. And then we get into the bang for the buck for station stuff, how we refine and enhance the station. And I said Q&A at the end for voice, but if you have questions during the show, please put them in the Q&A window and I'll either get to them right on the spot or probably at the end. So my assumptions about you in the audience, I'm assuming that you're familiar with contesting to the point where you've done a few, you may have done a lot. You have a modest station with one radio, maybe no amplifier, maybe you're just a low power person like all of us sort of started out, and that you have a modest budget. So you're looking to optimize what you have, and you're willing to progress step by step. There are no secret spells or incantations or magic gadgets to catapult you into the top 10 boxes. So you have to get there one step at a time. And I recognize that every operator and station is different. So I'm going to give you a lot of ideas and a lot of suggestions, items to consider. And you may be sitting there thinking, well, that doesn't work for me, or gosh, that's perfect for me. And so by the end of the show, I hope I'll have given everybody some ideas and tools to work with. And remember that we all started low and slow. Everybody gets started with a small station unless you're lucky enough to get invited to go operate a big multi-ops right off the bat. So we're all in the same boat at some point. We all put on our QSOs one log page at a time, I guess is the way to say it. And we all want to know what's the best way to get better. So that's what this is about. In the priorities part, I always start with the operator. The most important piece of station equipment is right here between the ears. It's that 25-watt glucose-powered machine, and that is where you will get the most bang for your buck. If you can improve that piece of equipment, you will be better off. There are some operators that you could throw them down in the middle of nowhere with a hunk of wire and an old radio, and they'd still make better scores than any of us. How do they do it? It's right in here. So the operator is first. Then your technique. How do you operate? How do you use your equipment? The technique is the next thing. So after you get done thinking about improving your copying skills and your know-how and whatnot, then technique is the second layer. Then antennas. Antennas are the big secret. They're the bang for the buck, I think, for any station, no matter what type of operating you're trying to do. So then we'll talk a little bit about antennas. Then the radio. The radio is coming in fourth place. You would think that the radio would be the most important thing, but it comes in fourth place. All the radios you can buy right now are pretty good. Now, Rob Sherwood has given a presentation on the other channel about the latest and greatest in the radios, and there are some mighty good pieces of equipment out there, but it's still possible to do well with modest equipment. And then finally, gadgets. Everybody looks for the magic gadgets, and there are certainly gadgets that will help, but they are not the secret. So start with the operator, refine your technique, build up your antenna farm, work on your radio operating skills, and then worry about the shack gadgets. And so as you go through this, we all have the cycle of life where you observe, and then you make a judgment, and then you act upon it, and then you repent. So that's the 4-part cycle of life. Hopefully it's maybe 3 steps forward, 2.9 back. We go through this and we go through this and we learn and we throw some things out that don't work. But don't be afraid to try stuff and see how it works. There's lots of contests out there, lots of pileups. You can get in there and find out what works and what doesn't. A good way to approach this question is to think about the problem in terms of layers. Contest success is incremental. You start at a certain level and with a certain amount of equipment and capabilities, and then you improve yourself step by step by step by step. And these are how we call them layers. This is how we think of the problem. So you're going to be peeling an onion, and as you get better at your skills and your station and you improve it, what happens is, oh, I can be heard. So I'm getting through the pileups. But then you can hear stuff that you can't work, or you realize that there is another whole population out there that you can't hear, that you need to hear. For example, from middle of the United States, you put up a modest station, you start working Western Europe pretty well, or Japan. And then you work and you work and you work, and then you realize, hey, I really need to get into zone 16 where the Russians are. And then you get to work the Russians, and then you realize, hey, there's a whole bunch of other stuff out there, 20, 21, all this kind of thing. Or you have worked Japan a lot, and then you realize you really need to start working China and Thailand and all along the Pacific Rim. So I can hear better than I can transmit. Then I can transmit better than I can hear. Then it's I can hear better than I can transmit. So it's a continual balancing act between your transmitting and your receiving to improve your station. But even if you talk about layers, operator improvement is continuous. You learn something with each QSO, and you learn something with each contest and all this. So continually look for opportunities to make small improvements. When you have the chance, study what you did versus what you expected to do and analyze it, and then revise your plan. Even if it's not a written plan, you have an idea of, gee, well, I didn't change to 40 meters quick enough, or I missed a 15-meter long path opening, or I really need to go a little faster on my CW. So you have an idea about how to conduct yourself on the air. So you address the obvious deficiencies first, like couldn't get through on 160 because my antenna sucks, or something like that. If you've got obvious deficiencies, fix them, and then look around for more, because we're all in this continuous improvement process. The Japanese call that Kaizen, and that process of continuous incremental improvement is what took companies like Toyota from also ran to world leaders. And that can take a ham from a little pistol to a Top Gun. Okay, why is this not advancing? There we go. So let's start with the operator. The operator is a human being, okay? And as a human being, you have heads and eyes and backs and arms, and you have a butt that you sit on and you keep it in the chair. So let's talk about this. Your head and eyes, that's where your software lives. You need to be able to see what's out there in front of you. You need to worry about that head and your neck and all this kind of stuff, your headphones, all these things. These are ergonomics. And so this is what you use to interact with your station. So you've got to make sure that these things are functioning well. For example, your headset, get a good one. Get a good, comfortable boom set. And everybody has different likes and dislikes. Try different types of headsets. Some people like these really big things that are sort of like aircraft headsets. And when I put one on, I feel like my head's in a vise. But other people love that. Find something that's comfortable. Some people like very light open headphones. Some people use earbuds. Whatever's comfortable for you, you're going to be doing this for hours and hours and hours and hours. So it can't make you uncomfortable. It should help you copy and speak and interact with the radio. Same thing with your eyes. If you have glasses, get a special pair of glasses with big lenses that focus on your monitor. Put everything right at that same distance from you so you can see clearly. If you have eye strain or some other problem, that's going to work against you. Let's talk about your back and your arms. Everything needs to sit right on your table at a comfortable level. It shouldn't be up here. It shouldn't be over here or way down there. Try different table heights until you can sit there in your chair and for hours and just type and hit enter, and you don't have to move your arms around to do things. And your back, if you've got back problems, and the older we all get, the more we have these little back tweaks and stuff, make sure that your back is supported. And it also helps to have a little footrest, maybe to lift your feet off the floor. That gets your thighs off your chair. Blood circulation is really important. It's almost like you're running a race here, because you're running a race with your head, but the rest of your body has to support that effort and not get in the way. Let's talk about the butt. And the butt is one of the most important parts of the operator, because if the butt is not happy, not anything else is happy. And you have to keep your butt in the chair for the contest if you're going to win. So let's make it easy to keep your butt in the chair. Okay. I'm always amazed that when I go into a big station and I look around and I see the latest and greatest radios and rotator controls and software this and pan adapter that, and I look at the seat, and it's an old secretarial chair that wobbles and it has a torn seat, and the back support is rocking back and forth, and it's totally uncomfortable. Why do that to yourself? You're going to be in that chair during a 48-hour contest for longer than an entire work week in a couple of days. So you wouldn't tolerate that at work or any place else. You'd insist on getting a decent work chair. So get a good chair for your shack. They don't cost that much. They cost a lot less than a radio. For example, these gamer chairs that are out there now, gamers spend more hours than we do through the week at a computer. So they've got these wonderful, comfortable gamer chairs that you can sit in for hours and hours and hours, and get one, spend whatever it takes. You can get them used, you can get them new, get a comfortable chair and have a couple of pads to put underneath you so that you can change the pressure on your butt throughout the contest and stay fresh. If you cut off circulation to your legs or feet, you're not going to be comfortable. Fitness, well, there goes half the audience, I can tell. It's important to be up on your sleep. It's be comfortable with where your body's at, no matter what that is. Some people are rail thin and other people are not. Whatever is comfortable for you, get in that zone through the week before a contest, and you'll be alert and you'll be engaged. Remember that you're doing this for longer than an entire work week in just a couple of days. So it's a marathon. It's a hard thing to do. You're engaged in a physical activity, burning a lot of glucose up here. You got to be there. So the operator has to be engaged and ready to go. Okay, so let's talk about that operator. Mental acuity is incredibly important. If you get distracted, if you get sleepy, if you get excited, if you get angry, all these different things distract from working stations and putting them in the log. So you can decide whether this is going to be fun or whether it's going to be a slog by working on how you set up your software windows, how you set up the software, how you set up your equipment. Everything has to be focused on the interface to the equipment. Mostly that's your computer now. If you put your computer someplace where you have to do this to look at it, you're going to get a sore neck before you know it, and that makes it hard to keep your butt in the chair and your mind in the game. So you have to remove these distractions and keep yourself focused. When you set up your station, label it clearly and make the station layout logical. If you have, say you have two radios, set one over here and one over here, and then put all of the stuff for radio 1 with radio 1. All of the stuff for radio 2 with radio 2, so that you're not having to continually think, oh, this switch goes this way and this switch goes that way and all this kind of stuff. Because at 3 in the morning on Saturday night, it's really hard to remember these things. Your brain just runs out of gas. Make it easy for you to do the right thing, and that leads to fewer mistakes, like when you suddenly realize you've been trying to work 160 on your 40 meter antenna, or you forgot to turn the amplifier to the new band and it's not amplifying. You can get into situations where you break things, and that's unpleasant. That's not fun. This is supposed to be a hobby. So the idea is to make things logical so it's easy for you to do the right thing. Color code stuff, so your brain thinks, oh, 20 meters green, 40 meters orange, and it gets into that routine so it doesn't have to think about stuff. And also accuracy. Make it easy for yourself to operate accurately, log people correctly and all their information. If you're tired, if you're sleepy, if you're distracted, you lose accuracy. And when you lose accuracy, you lose score even faster than you lose your QSOs, because there's usually a penalty with making a mistake. So keep your score up there. Don't give points away because you aren't accurate. Okay, know-how. This is part of the 25-watt glucose powered machine up here. Know your station, okay? Know what each switch does. Be comfortable with how you adjust filters or antenna switches or rotators. Know how it works and make that second nature to you. Just practice, 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 practice. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Study propagation. The idea that you're in this contest to work other stations around the world, even if it's a VHF or microwave contest, maybe even more so if it's a VHF or microwave contest. You need to know what propagation is available to you, what propagation is likely to be present. Is the ionosphere disturbed? Is there a tropo opening that's predicted? Has there been sporadic E? You need to understand the playing field on which you're going to play. The propagation prediction tools like Voice of America CAP, VOA CAP, and other online tools like that are very important to getting your mind aware of what the possibilities are. Once you get past simple Europe, Japan, South America type opening, you start to think about long path. You start to think about, well, gee, what about that weird over the pole thing that sometimes happens on 15 meters? Or, gee, it's morning in New Zealand. Should I be trying to work them on 20 meters, or should I be still calling them on 160, or what? Then move on to learning your software. I did get a question here about the gamer chair. I already have my chairs, my office chairs, and I got them from one of the big office boxes. So no, I don't know the brands, but if you go to Amazon and you search for a gamer chair, you'll find quite a few. Read the reviews, and that's my recommendation. But this is a relatively new development, gamer chair, so have at it. Okay, so your software, you're picking one of the popular programs. N3FJP is a wonderful package of software to get started with, and it's a good, solid, basic program. Learn it. Learn all of its interesting features. What windows can you open? How do I set up sending CW? All this kind of stuff. Then maybe you move to a more capable program. The most popular one is N1MM Plus Logger, but there's Write Log, there's WinTest, there's a whole bunch of them. And whatever software you have, learn how to configure it, learn how to operate it, and change settings on the fly while you're in the contest. For example, learn how to edit a call or an exchange while you're still calling CQ. We've all heard somebody who gets completely hung up trying to edit a contact, and in that 30-second to 1 minute period, they lose everybody calling because they all tune away while this guy's trying to figure out how to edit a contact. So learn how to do that. If you're not a touch typist, practice typing. Yes, it's a typing contest. We have to transcribe what we know up here into what gets sent to the contest sponsors. So learn how to type accurately without having to look at your fingers while you do it. It's a hard skill to listen, think, type, watch all at the same time. It's easy to do kind of one at the same time, but not all four. Call signs. You'll hear calls from people, and after you do this for a while, you hear the last two Alpha X-ray, and maybe you think N0AX. That works for me. But there are plenty of other people out there that are in contests all the time. And the more you operate, the more you will recognize your calls, their calls, and they will recognize yours. So make it easy when you have 2, 3, 4 people calling. When you hear a prefix, when you call back and say, who's the Alpha radio? You're already thinking K1AR, N6AR, whatever, and which one of the ARs are out there. Don't rely too much on super check partial. You can get wrapped around an axle with super check. It's a bit of a crutch. It's nice to have the person come back on the other end and confirm what your super check partial says, but it's also possible to assume that SCP is right and log the wrong thing. Here's a good tip from Bill Turner. He says, once you get the software working the way you want, make sure you set it up the same way all the time. He says, take a screenshot and save it. here's what worked for me right here in sweepstakes. And that includes where are the various windows that you open? Where did I put the gray line map? Where did I put my multiplier list? All this kind of stuff. Just don't be afraid to change and arrange things so you have just the amount of windows and features active that you want and that you're comfortable with those. Once you get them comfortable, save them. Same thing for your CW messages. Got a tip here, Herman Miller and Steelcase Pro Office chairs that are rated for 8+ hour usage. So there's a good metric for you, 8+ hour usage. And you can get these chairs that are used, go in and put your butt on them and see what happens. But a good new chair from a main brand is a good investment. Study your old logs. Sometimes I look at my old logs and I go, oh, or worse, listen to my recorded audio. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I possibly miss that guy's call? But study your old logs. When did that weird opening to Saudi Arabia happen on Sunday? Maybe I should be looking in that direction. Oh gosh, after the band closed on 15 meters, there was this strange Japanese opening over the South Pacific, where I got some kind of vertical structure in the ionosphere and bounced my signal off of that. When was my best rate? Use a tool like CBS or one of the log updating services, log parsing services to give you a report. When were your periods of high rate? When were your periods of low rate? When did you work the most multipliers? When did the 160 and 80 meters actually open up? You have to decide where to expend your resources. Your old logs will tell you things that you do and do not want to know. If you can get them, study the logs of the winning stations. And most of the top contesters that I know are happy to give out their logs. There's no real secret sauce here except reps and skill. And a log is a record of that. A lot of contests have public logs now. ARL has public logs. You can download them and look and see how they did it. And so maybe that's a tip for you too. Let's talk about technique now. Technique is your number one source of score DBs. How do you get another DB out of your score? And it's just smoothness and reps. Remember the old Karate Kid thing where the guys hand on, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. And the kid's like, what am I doing with wax on, wax off? And at some point, he's in some kind of a competition and his opponent tries something and he goes, wah, wah, like that. And then he goes, whoa, okay, I get it. Okay, practice makes the master. Practice, 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 practice. And listen to the masters. If you got some time and you tune by somebody who's really good running a pilot, listen for a little while. How do they do it? You just want to go as smooth as possible. It's like these long distance runners. You don't see them throwing their arms around and lifting up their legs and all this kind of stuff. They're doing just the minimum over and over and over and over, and they're consistent in their practice. They don't waste energy. They breathe. You listen to somebody like K1AR running a voice pileup. He gets that call, gives the exchange, listens to the exchange, logs the exchange, on to the next guy. Practice, practice, practice. If you can, work with a multi-op team in your area. Volunteer and then watch them. Sit and listen to the good guys operate, and you'll figure out a few trips every time. Start a multi-op team. Have some people over to your station. Share tips. Talk about it. What works, what doesn't. And don't be afraid to ask these top operators questions. All of them are happy to be asked. They were in your shoes one time, and they will help you out. And you can trade recordings, or you can listen live as well on the air. You can listen to yourself. Put a web SDR on your frequency and record the audio, and you can hear what you sound like. So strive to simply make yourself smooth and reliable and consistent, and it is going to pay off in big score improvements. Another thing is a truism in contesting is if you're not calling CQ, you're losing. And even little pistols can call CQ. Um, the the thing is, you're always at the back end of the pileup, and you think, "Gosh, I could never call CQ." But you're tuning up the band. There's a hole. Nobody's there. Call CQ. You work 10 guys, and then you get run off the frequency. Okay, well, you work 10 guys. So basically, what you're trying to find is a hole and a propagation that allows your station to run contacts from someplace. Okay, if that's high in the band, that's great. You don't have to be down on the band edge slugging it out with K3LR and W3LPL. You can be way up in the band with CW skimmers and RTTY skimmers and PSK reporter and stuff like that. They will find you wherever you are in the bottom 100 kilohertz and sometimes farther up now, and post you on spotting networks. The important thing is to be out where another station can hear you clearly. So it doesn't really matter if you think you've found a spot, but at the other end, in Europe, for example, that frequency is crowded and noisy, you won't have success. So what you want to be is out in the clear. And that's why sometimes it's better to be way up in the band or even above dot 100 on CW or someplace out of the crowd. If you're not a big station and you're a little guy, get out there where people can see you. And then you want to type, send, speak, and copy accurately. You don't want to make mistakes when you're sending. You don't want to make mistakes when you're receiving. Try to speak consistently and find this rhythm. That helps you be accurate because you're doing the same thing every time. So your brain doesn't have to think about stuff all the time. Say the same thing all the time. Use the same phonetics. Had a question here. What is SuperCheck? It's a database that comes with contest loggers of call signs that have submitted logs in contests. And so if you type N0A, it will show you N0AX, AL, AT, all the other N0As out there that submit contest logs. So down in a little window down at the bottom, generally, when you type in your call sign of the person calling, it will go through and it will show you some possibilities. But don't be too reliant on it. It's a good way to make mistakes, which cost you points. And another question about how do you record an entire contest? What you can do is some of the contest logging programs have that already set up. If you don't, then you can set up like Audacity or some other app and just plug it into your headphones and just record the whole thing. Recording your transmit audio is a bit harder, but CW that comes in your headphones, you can turn monitor on, for example, get some transmit audio, or you can even use a standalone recorder. You just have to remember to put in fresh batteries. Another thing to do is breathe. And we all get excited and then adrenaline starts getting going and your voice gets higher and higher and you get distracted and upset. So remember to breathe. Sweepstakes is the worst because it has such a long exchange. And you hear people get all out of breath and they have to take a breath in the middle of the exchange and then they get flustered and they don't send the same thing all the time. You just got to inhale. While they're calling you, you breathe in. You say, CQ sweepstakes. And then you go, N0AX, number 2, Alpha, W1AA, 71, Connecticut. And then you're done. And learn how to do that over and over and over again. And then you don't pass out from lack of oxygen after 3 contests or 3 contacts. Just be consistent, find a rhythm that will help you feel better physically and help your brain process the same thing all the time. If you've got a second radio, if you're going to do SO2R, you don't have to commit to being fully SO2R right away. Just take it easy and learn how to make that second radio generate a contact or two for you every every few minutes or something, maybe you find another station to work. Maybe it's just a handful an hour. Well, that can make the difference, particularly if you find multipliers on the second band. We'll talk more about SO2R in a little bit. If I can get this, there we go. Okay. I talk about accuracy a lot. If you look at the accuracy, the error rates of the top operators, the ones that are in the top 10 all the time, they have amazingly good error rates. Less than 1% of their contacts are bad. And that's really good because they're going to lose typically 3 times that in score reductions. And you don't want to lose multipliers and that kind of thing. So be sure that you're accurate. You can get your log check report, LCR, or it's also called a unique busted nil. Nil stands for not in log. You can get a report from the contest sponsors and you can look at that. And yes, it's a little embarrassing. You go, oh my gosh, look at all the contacts that I lost. Well, everybody loses a few, okay? And sometimes stuff happens. But look at your LCR and think, what do I consistently miss? You know, I get H wrong a lot. Sometimes I copy it as S, sometimes I copy it as 5, that kind of thing. Maybe I should work a little harder on copying that thing. Or maybe I'm not using good phonetics, or maybe I don't understand German accents or Japanese, or maybe I'm not speaking clearly. Maybe other people miss things from you. And so speak clearly, listen well, and study that LCR because it will tell you where your low-hanging fruit is. You know, this is a list of the things that you can do to make a higher score. So don't discount that. If they don't make it available for you automatically, you can email the contest sponsor and ask for it. Learn to pull out full calls. When you have several people calling you, why go back and forth? Whoop, that was my cat helping me. There we go. When other people are calling you, and maybe there's more than one, try to learn to pull out a full call. Why go back and forth with them 3 or 4 times to get the call sign? If you can pull it out the first time, and sometimes all it takes is everybody calls and you don't get it, just wait and they'll call again. Fewer of them will call and they'll kind of spread out in time a little bit, and it makes it easy. Get that full call so that every interaction, you call CQ, you wait for a little while, then you call with the full call. Don't go back and forth unnecessarily. Be very wary of using databases like what's called a pre-fill, which is a list of information that was from the last contest for that station. And this is a great way to lose a lot of contacts. If you're in the NAQP or something where you can work a station 5 or 6 times in a contest, and you're using a database of pre-fill information, and that person is not operating with the same name, and people change names all the time, or they're operating from a different QTH, and you don't pay attention and you log what's in the database, not what they send, you're going to lose every stinking contact. So don't do that because your logging software will fill that in for you. You screw up the first one, you're going to screw up all 5 or 6 of the rest of them. So that's a real problem. If you want to be accurate, you got to listen to what they send, log that. Spots from the spotting network are another source of common errors. Make sure that the call sign is what's in the spot. And then learn not to guess. It's really hard to make yourself go, I just don't know. I didn't get that. And just ask, go back and forth a couple of times and make sure you get it right. Sometimes the station is too weak. Sometimes you're too weak. And it's easy to lose a frequency or waste a lot of time trying to get the call sign or the exchange information from somebody who's just too weak. And we've all had the experience where we can't work the station, we give up, we tune away, and we come back in 5 minutes, and they're 5.9, and we work them right off the bat. So try 2 or 3 times and then say, sorry, later, unless it's something that you absolutely have to work. Okay, manage your time. Running is key. We've already talked about that. You can get, even if there's big gaps between the QSOs when you're CQing, watch that little rate meter. Can you search in pounds faster than this? Know how fast you can search in pounds at different times. When the band is fresh, you can work 60 to 100 an hour search and pouncing, but that's going to slow way down. So if you're CQing consistently at 60 or 70 an hour, after that first hour S&P, CQing is a better deal. Watch your rate meter for that kind of information and how many QSOs per multiplier. If you're going to chase a multiplier, you're going to have to work it in fewer QSOs than that number, or you've just wasted some time. So use that information. Your logging software will give it to you. The distractions packet, meaning the spotting networks. It's really easy to get distracted by chasing spots. It's a lot of fun. The joke is that the assistant class is really single op distracted. But yes, it can be fun if you're a casual operator. Hey, go for it. Have fun. You can work DX, new multiplier shows up over here. Ding! It's really hard to not put your run frequency aside and go chase this person. Okay, so you got to watch out for your distractions. The other distractions are continually fiddling with your rotators and all this other stuff and your compression and changing your messages and all this kind of stuff. You got to really ask yourself, is this going to matter to the station on the other end? If I change my heading 10 degrees, is that going to change my signal strength in Berlin or Tokyo or Buenos Aires? Probably not. So just point it and keep your hands off of it. Keep your brain focused on making QSOs. Plan your operating time and off time planning. For example, out on the West Coast, Friday night, a worldwide contest. Don't waste a lot of time as a little pistol trying to outslug the East Coast to Europe. Better to get some sleep and then come in after the East Coast sunrise and you have everything to the west to yourself. So plan ahead. Off time planning is another important thing. There's 2-hour off time in AQP, and Sweepstakes also has a 6-hour off time requirement. Look at your old logs, decide based on current conditions what would be a good time to take off time. And don't be afraid to change your plan as things go along. It's always nice to have a plan, but be willing to change that plan in the face of changing conditions or some kind of change in participation. And remember to keep focused on getting that next contact. Magazines, TV, email, browsing, all these different things, they take up your brain cycles and take away your QSOs. If you're in the contest, if you're serious about it, turn off all the distractions and other things. Okay, manage your score. Look for opportunities, low-hanging fruit to improve your score. Watch for multipliers and move them if this is one of the multi-band contact contests. Sunday is really good because everybody's rate is kind of down a little bit. And if you hear a station that had a roaring pileup on Saturday, maybe Sunday they're calling CQ 2 or 3 times between contacts. You can work them and they say, hey, I could really use you on 15 meters, and then be ready to move. When they say, yes, what frequency? You are really there. You're ready, and you say 21.275. You already are ready to go. You have that programmed in. You can either type it into your logging software, or it's a VFO button on your radio. Be ready to go. That's money in the bank. Run that mult. Pick up 2 or 3 mults, just like that. Excellent. That's exhilarating. Have an M&M handy in a bowl for when you work a multiplier, pop that in the mouth. Avoid penalties at all costs by inaccurate operating and guessing. There's a website from Bill NG3, November Golf 3 Kilo, and he lists all of the expeditions that have registered for the contest and people that have gone different places. That hasn't been the case during the pandemic, but it's coming back. Have a list of all these things and say, hey, I haven't worked so-and-so portable FS7. I need to listen to him. Oh, he's a 15-meter single band. entry. I should listen for them on 15 meters. Check all those little boxes off. You can make skeds with people. If you work VK on Saturday morning and you think you're going to need VK on 80 meters, it's okay to make a sked with the guy during the contest, not before the contest. That's not ethical. But during the contest, and say, hey, are you going to be on 80 tonight? Can I work you on 35, 50 at some time? And then make that sked, put a reminder in your software, or make a little note to yourself. Okay, and know the propagation so that when you work these guys, you have a question in mind. Don't start thinking about propagation while you're trying to make the sked. Every once in a while, it's good to just have your situational awareness. Back up, what's the deal? Review and adjust your plan. Okay, here we go. Okay, second radio. Keep it simple. It doesn't have to be a big fancy radio. Temporary on the antenna front is okay. And we know what temporary means, until I die. Okay, so it's okay to put up a dipole or a vertical out in the backyard just for the contest. And then integrate that second radio into your station. There are a number of tutorials and people that are more than willing to show you how to integrate SO2R stuff into your station. Give it a try. It's not that hard. You can do it simply at first, and it may add a few percent to your score, and you'll get better every single time. Okay, target your low rate periods. When are you, from your old logs, when are you not working stations? Would it be better for you to get some sleep then? Should you be on a different band? Work on that. And then you can work on that with your second radio. So if you've got a low rate period, you want to be on the air, put that second radio to work too. And you don't want to screw up your primary radio and your antennas with your second radio stuff. It's got to be an enhancement and not a hindrance. And consider adding a 2-radio box. There's a number of controllers out there. Sometimes it's as simple as a headphone switch. That's it. Start with the headphone switch and work your way up. Okay, there we go. Antenna selection. Antennas are the biggest bang for your hardware buck. Think about that next level. Get a bigger, longer antenna, you get another antenna, you get a monobander, whatever. But improve for that next level. Identify where that next level is, and then design an antenna or select an antenna to address that need. Simplify your switching and aiming. You know, contesting is not DXing. You're trying to get a big footprint in one direction or another. You're not trying to continually optimize within 5 degrees for that one particular station. So you want to just say Europe, Japan, South America, whatever. That's about as much as you need in contesting. Sometimes it's helpful to have a small fixed Yagi. It can be on a push-up mast, or it can be low on your tower. Get that little A3 field day antenna out of the garage and point it at the Caribbean, so that all you have to do is switch over there, work that guy, switch back to Europe, whatever. It makes it so much easier. One little antenna, one direction, that can really help. Simple low band and receive antennas, anything that cuts receive noise, will reduce the noise and reduce the fatigue, and it'll keep you in the game, and it'll help you hear and pick up those low band multipliers. When you talk about a radio, as Rob Sherwood is talking about right now, a clean receiver is the most important thing. Now, you need a wide dynamic range, but it doesn't need to be extreme. If you can control the gain, either with either your attenuator, your RF gain, you can shift your dynamic range up and down for strong signal conditions or weak signal conditions. And so you don't need an $8,000 receiver. I know the manufacturer's like, oh, you can't say that, but it's true. You can use most any radio, control its gain profile, and get really good performance out of it. Learn to use all those filters, including passband filters and all these different things. And you also want low audio distortion. It needs to be clean audio, and that includes your headphones. So you're listening to hi-fi junk that comes out of your radio. You want to make sure it's not got a lot of distortion in there. on transmit, clean transmit. On code, control that waveform rise time and fall time so you're not generating clicks. Make sure your radio doesn't generate a lot of phase noise. On phone, you know, turning everything up to 11, maybe your meter's farther to the right, but I'm telling you, we can't hear you, okay? When you tune by a guy, it sounds like he's in the middle of an engine room someplace. A lot of times you just keep tuning. So even if you're exciting and yelling into the microphone and all this stuff, it doesn't make people want to stop and talk to you. Digital, it's less of an issue, but when you start seeing sidebands being generated and other things, it's a problem for everybody. So learn to use that radio, all those features you paid for. And finally, gadgets. I find that the fewer gadgets I have to manage, the better. I have essentially one gadget that I use at my station, and that's the audio control for SO2R. That's pretty much it. My single op2 radio controller, that's it. I don't have a lot of shack automation or anything. We're talking about going remote, so I'm going to have some more automation. But really, you just want a minimum number of gadgets. Is this gadget really going to help you? What is the need? Can I accomplish that by some other method? Do I really want another box on my desk that I have to worry about setting up? Is there an alternative? Can I learn how to do this myself? Can I do this in my radio? You know, do I really need the extra complexity? That's what it comes down to. Am I going to be able to use this in that 2-hour period before sunrise on Sunday morning when I'm just already seeing the pink elephants, can't think straight? But you're going to have to integrate it into the station, make it a part of that station so it works and works well. And then you got to learn how to use it. You know, all these little features and stuff. When does it make a difference? When does it not? When should I turn it on? When should I turn it off? These are important. So evaluate your gadgets carefully. They're fun to buy and play with, but often they're a distraction. On your software, turn off your unused features and windows. If you can clear off your screen, you have less clutter. Another thing, upgrade and test your software before Friday. This is why software developers turn their phone off on Friday, because everybody waits until the last couple hours and suddenly, oh my gosh, I've got to upgrade my software, and then it didn't install right, and I don't know how to work this, and what's this and what's that. Do it a week or two before. Make sure you know how to use any new features, and then arrange the windows to match your layout. If software, if radio 1's over here and radio 2's over here, don't put the windows for them the other way. You know, why confuse yourself? Make sure your windows match your mental picture of what's going on in your station. We already talked about editing a previous QSO while not suspending your run. Learn how to switch focus between the radios so that you're going back and forth. In N1MM, it's that control arrow back and forth that switches it. And put the monitor where you can see it easily. So right here, get the biggest one you can. Put the important stuff right in the middle. Put the not so important things, your info screen, your gray line, other stuff. Either minimize it or get it off the middle. Your brain needs to focus. Here's some resources for you. Other contesters in your contest club, join one, go to the meetings, take the webinars, all this kind of stuff. Ask questions and soak it all up. Read the soapbox on 3830scores.com, full of really good stuff. There's a good SO2R, single op2 radio tutorial written by K0AD. It's on the ncjweb.com in the bonus content area. So go read that and he'll get you started, and just type in SO2R tutorial into search engine and you'll get lots of hits. The Tower Talk and Top Band reflectors are really good for propagation, information on putting up antennas, that kind of thing. National Contest Journal and ncjweb.com are full of good stuff. And if you're an ARRL member, those come free every year, every month too. And the ARRL Contest Update newsletter that Brian N9AGG edits now is full of good stuff. So basically, I've given you a bunch of tools here, and it's up to you kind of what to do with it. Remember, operator first, the technique second, your antennas are your third. then worry about radios, and finally gadgets. So thanks. I've got a couple of questions here. We talked about what an LCR UBN report are. Is it fair to lump SO2R along with a single radio? Sure. I mean, that's the game, okay? That is how you do it. That's how you get a big score. You need to go out and learn how to use that second radio. That's the standard now. Every time there is a jump in technology, there's always this tension between those that have adopted it and those that have not. I remember arguments about, is it fair to use an electronic keyer? I'm showing my age here. I had a question about a long time ago about, is it fair to use a computer versus paper? I remember when arguments about mechanical pencils were, edgy. So technology keeps moving, and you can go as far as you want with it. But yeah, it's pretty much fair. It's standard practice now. When you put your score on 3830, there's a box you can check. It says, did you do second radio? And so that's a way of evaluating yourself against other single radio stations. So there's a distinction, but the categories are what they are.
Hey,
And
Ward,
finally,
this
yeah,
is Ed Rawls, and we have reached the time. You had a great presentation. I see quite a few more
okay.
questions, but I don't think we have time for them.
Well, I can give one pointer. How to take advantage of propagation planning. If you have low power and a vertical antenna, go to voacap.com. That's Victor Ocean Alpha Charlie Alpha Papa. Voice of America computer aided propagation.com. Learn how to use it. They have options in there for low power